Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting for Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. at the Hollis Community Building. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we're going to do a roll call. From my left.
Is your mic working?
Hello?
Is that better? Can you
Hello?
hear now?
Hello?
There you go.
Oh, goodness.
Welcome.
Welcome.
I was trying to dial it in from last time, but go ahead.
Welcome to the Select Board meeting for Wednesday, July 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Hollis Community Building. I'd like to call the meeting to order and do roll call from my left with our new town manager going first.
You didn't want.
You're live. That's
You're live.
You're
Oh.
live.
Huh?
That's mute.
That's
you're
me.
live.
Oh, I'm live.
You're good.
You didn't tell me I had to say anything.
You just have to say who you are.
Okay, I'm Dick Moran. I'm delighted to be here, and look forward to. This is only day 2, so don't ask me any hard questions, and we will see what the future brings. Thank you very much.
Mike Arnois, delighted to be here with Dick. Select board member, I guess. Delighted to be here. Yeah.
Yep, Roger Hicks.
Mary Hoffman, I'm the Select Board Chair.
John Jack Regala, Select Board.
Still going.
Dan Urumian, Select Board.
Welcome, everybody. So we're supposed to welcome our first town manager, Richard Moran, and just so we can announce it 15 times, we're going to have a meet and greet on Tuesday, July 8th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the community building. Coffee, donuts, and snacks will be served. The public is encouraged to attend. I sort of snicker about the donuts because we were just going to have coffee and snacks, and I was told by the audience a couple meetings ago that we had to have donuts from Tony's. So we will have donuts from Tony's. So I'd like to ask Dave Jarrell if he will introduce our speakers. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dave Durrell, resident of Hollis, and I volunteer for the town of Hollis on the EcoMaine board. And we're very happy to have with us this evening to explain some things about EcoMaine and some changes that are going on, some very exciting changes. Kevin, who is the, you're the chair, the head honcho, the general manager, and Lucy Sullivan, who is the communications director for EcoMaine, and they're here tonight to share some wisdom, insights, and general cool stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dave. And you're well represented on the EcoMaine board by Dave. He's been a very dedicated board member for many years now, so thank you for your service. Not only that, he keeps me on my toes, so that's a good thing. I have a presentation, and I'm going to share that presentation, the delivery of the presentation, with my coworker, Lucy Sullivan, who is our new communications director and also handles public affairs. So the few things that we wanted to cover today is we want to make sure that if you're not familiar with who we are and what we do, we want to explain what it is that we do, talk a little bit about recycling, what's next with recycling. Something that's very important for our member communities is EPR, which stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. The beauty of that program is it's going to provide funding to help the town pay for your recycling efforts and your recycling initiatives. So very important program that's beginning next year. Also wanted to talk about a market report and give a little bit specifically on how Hollis fits into the data and membership in EcoMaine. So next slide. So we can move on again. So who is EcoMaine? We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have now 27 owner communities. In addition to that, we have almost 70 member communities in all. So the remaining communities that aren't owners are what we call contract members. So they're in contract with the owner communities. Our mission statement is the second bullet, and that is EcoMaine provides comprehensive long-term solid waste solutions in a safe, environmentally responsible, economically sound manner, and is a leader in raising public awareness of sustainable waste management strategies. And I think it's that last piece of our mission statement that really sets EcoMaine apart from other solid waste authorities or organizations, and that is our commitment to public education and outreach. Why do we do public education and outreach in our communities? Because we want good participation and compliance in our recycling programs. Without that, we can't have effective solid waste management. And so that's one of our tools that we get the word out so that we get that maximum participation. We handle about a third of Maine's waste and recyclable materials, and we're processing about 35,000 tons of recycling materials each year. I mentioned our mission statement, but to the right is the waste hierarchy, which is not only in state statute, but also guidance from the federal EPA, and that is first reduce, reuse, and recycle, and then compost and digestion, then waste energy, and then the very bottom rung of the hierarchy is landfilling. The idea here is to push management tools, solid waste management tools, up the hierarchy as far as possible. So obviously we want to focus on reduce, reuse, and recycle first before we get to the bottom three rungs of the hierarchy. So next slide. What do we do? Well, we have several facilities and programs that help us do the management of solid waste and recyclable and recoverable materials from our member communities. We have a waste energy facility where we burn or combust the waste that is not recoverable. And by doing so, we actually get a reduction in the volume of waste that we have to landfill by 90%. So basically our landfill, which we own and operate a landfill in Scarborough and South Portland, is 1/10 the size that it would have been had we not had that function in place. The other thing that benefit we get from waste to energy is we also have a magnet. After we burn the waste, the ash runs across the magnet and we pull out any metal. So any metal that was put into the waste stream, we're pulling out, whether you know it or not, and recovering that metal and recycling that material as well. And then the final thing that waste energy provides us is that it stabilizes the waste mass because we're landfilling ash as opposed to live, raw trash. And live, raw trash is kind of a living body of mass that presents many challenges and is also one of the greatest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, in particular methane. I mentioned we have a landfill, ash fill, in the town of Scarborough and in South Portland. It's located in half and half in each town. We have a recycling facility, and we also have, for the last 8 years, a food waste recovery program. We have partnered with Exeter Biofuels in the little town of Exeter, Maine, little town of Exeter, Maine is on the national map when it comes to food waste management, because that program they have developed a sustainable program where they mix our food waste, about on a 50-50 basis, with cow manure, put it in the digester, generates gas, convert it to electricity, and then they export the electricity off the farm, and as well as utilize the electricity on the farm itself. So little tiny Exeter, Maine is really on the national map, and it's something that we can be really proud of. Next slide. So that's our member communities. So we have communities in southern Maine. We actually go across the border, Newington and Greenland and New Hampshire. Obviously down east, and pretty a ways to the north. So we have a very diverse group of communities, and basically they vote to become members of our organization. We have different forms of membership. We have owner communities and we have contract members, and then there's a subcategory of contract members, and that's associates. The associate members have the only thing that makes them unique is that they have a 20-year agreement with the owner communities. Next slide. Dave mentioned that there's been a lot of changes lately with EcoMaine, and one of the things that we've really been pushing is to grow our regional approach to solid waste management. by growing, I'm talking about adding new communities. And so we've really grown. I mean, 20 years ago, we had 21 member communities, and now we have 68 member communities. So over the last 20 years, we have really, really grown considerably. And this past year, we have seen, and actually just in the last day, we have seen the most growth because we added all these new communities as of yesterday. So the communities on the top there include Buxton, Cornish, Kennebuck, North Berwick, Sanford, Shapley, and South Berwick. Those have become owners. So the board of directors had considered new ownership into EcoMaine over the last couple of years. We've been negotiating those contracts. They had to buy into the organization because obviously we have assets, some of those liquid assets. And you can see their proposed buy-in price, and they bought it in with the opportunity to pay that buy-in over the next 30 years. And then we have 2 new contract communities, and actually we have 3, Kennebunk Port, Old Orchard Beach, and Topsom. And maybe one other. Tomorrow morning I'm meeting with Bath. The organization is growing, and a regional approach to solid waste management really is a big thing because it's all about the economy of scale. When it comes to managing solid waste and recyclable materials, you need the economy of scale to make it affordable if you want to do it right. So next slide, please. So last year, last year, 2024, the state and we assisted in doing a waste characterization study. We are awaiting the results from that study, so we're still working with some dated information. But the point that I want to make with the waste characterization study is when we sort through, and these pictures actually were taken from last year, we sort through all those little different, basically waste that's coming into our facility and separate it into about 70 different categories. What we found was there is still a ton, literally tons and tons, of recyclable material that's still coming in through the trash stream, through the waste stream. And that's the piece of it that we really need to work harder to separate that recoverable material and get it out of the waste stream. Next slide, please. And so one of the ways we're going to do that is we are now in the middle of constructing a new, what we call a MRF, but you might be more familiar with a recycling facility, or we call it a materials recovery facility. This facility is being built right across the street and adjacent to the old recycling facility as well as the waste energy plant. So location. It's an ideal location. We have all the infrastructure. We have maintenance. We have the scale house. Everything's right there, and so we won't have to duplicate those efforts, and we'll enjoy those synergies that work well with us. And of course, that's the turnpike that's right next door to us. So this facility is the old Sturbridge Yankee warehouse. It's a 60,000 square foot facility that we're converting into a recycling facility. It had been vacant for quite some time. So that new facility is going to allow us to sort and separate materials through a more automated approach than we've experienced over the last 20 years. 20 years, we put a new recycling system in, and 20 years ago, 90% of what we collected in our recycling program was newspapers. And so the bulk of what came in was mostly newspapers. Today, you'll be hard-pressed to find a newspaper coming into the recycling facility. There's a few out there, but there's not many. It's mostly packaging. So it's plastic and metal and glass packages as well as paper packages. Think boxes. We all receive them now. And so the material types that come into our facilities are much different than they were years ago. So this new system will be an automated system which will use infrared technology to optically sort and separate material as opposed to using manual screens or manual sorters or mechanical sorting devices. This will be automated, and you program these sorting devices to sort any material you want. You can sort number 2 plastic, number 3 plastic, number 4 plastic, brown paper, white paper, whatever types of glass you want to sort. Much more automated than it used to be. Next slide, please. I'd now like to turn it over to Lucy, who's going to cover our outreach and public education.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about recycling. Recycling's been around a long time, and I think it's one of those things that's been around so long, sometimes you lose sight of the fundamentals a little bit. It becomes background noise. So wanted to talk, you can advance the slide, a little bit about why we recycle and what the basics are that we need folks to know. As Kevin mentioned, we have the waste hierarchy here. Recycling's in the middle. But look, in America, the average person produces 4.5 pounds of waste per day. I did a little quick math on this room. Don't check my numbers if you're a finance person, but I think that puts us at over 60 pounds today in this room. Obviously, that requires a pretty thoughtful solution that leverages everything on that waste hierarchy really thoughtfully, or that waste is going to add up really fast. So it is saving landfill space. Recycling 1 ton of plastic is going to save you 30 cubic yards of landfill space. It creates a lot of jobs, 36 times more than just regular disposal. And it reduces emissions, to Kevin's point. If Maine recycles 50% of its solid waste, which it doesn't, but that is potentially achievable, it would be like taking 166,000 cars off the road. And you think about what that means for air quality. So there are a lot of good reasons to recycle beyond actually even just the waste reduction. You can go ahead. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the fundamentals. These are the principles that we want people to feel really confident about as they approach their bin. Again, there can be a lot of detail in recycling. There's a lot of nuance, but if people really understand these key areas, we're going to have success with the bins. You do want to recycle your glass, your metal, your rigid plastics, numbered 1 through 7 containers. Cardboard, as Kevin mentioned, a huge part of recycling now, thanks to packaging and Amazon, and paper. What we don't want to see in the bins, stretchy or crinkly plastic, grocery bags, chip bags, snack packaging, things like that. Rechargeable batteries, these are more and more common. Lithium-ion batteries for all kinds of things that we now use every day. These rechargeables can't go in a recycling bin. Fabrics, clothing, textiles, there are a lot of great ways to bring those out of the waste stream. They don't need to go in your trash bag. There's donations, there's textile recycling programs through places like Apparel Impact, but they do not belong in a blue bin. Food, the same thing. There are a lot of great ways to get it out of your trash bag, but putting it in your blue bin is not one of them. We don't want food in there. Composting is your alternative. And styrofoam. Of course, we see a lot less of that on the food side these days, but it still is in packaging and shipping materials. Styrofoam can't go in the blue bin either. Those are the fundamentals that we want people to feel really confident in, and you'll hear us, beating that drum all the time. But there is a lot of detail to it. People have really specific questions. I got asked about life jackets on the phone the other day. I mean, think of all the things that we need to dispose of. That's why the Recyclopedia is here. If there's one thing I want people to sort of take away and know about when they're in EcoMaine community, it's knowing that the Recyclopedia is available. That's on ecomaine.org, or you can download an app on your phone. It's a searchable database. It's specific to EcoMaine communities, so it's not just sort of broadly what is and isn't recyclable, that you might get from a Google search, because that's not the same thing as what actually will be recycled at EcoMaine and in your community if you're in an EcoMaine community. So that Recyclopedia is your best friend. So that's why we try to get the word out about that. And I have some things with Dave, some handouts, some magnets. We have a lot of ways to get that word out. Speaking of getting the word out, I guess, let's go next slide. There's a reason we put a lot of emphasis and effort into this. The cost of contamination, which is just what we call it when anything that's not recyclable is entering our blue bins, that's contamination. The costs are very real to us, to our communities. First of all, landfilling recyclables, you're leaving money on the table. I mean, that recyclable waste that material can be sold. If that's ending up in your landfill, you've left money on the table. There's increased costs to remove the contaminants. You might need more personnel or different equipment if you're finding a lot of contaminants. There are safety hazards. This is a risky business that our folks are in. We're determined to keep our staff safe, and especially something like a lithium-ion battery, very real hazards with that if those are going in the waste stream. Makes the facilities less efficient. You're pausing, you're stopping, during the day, and ultimately could reduce the market value. So again, we sell this recyclable material, as Kevin will talk a little bit about the market for that. If you have a lot of contamination in your byproduct, it's going to lose value. So there's a reason we work so hard to get this messaging out, because it really does. The bottom line impact on the communities is very real. Next slide, please. So that's why we have a terrific education team, and EcoMaine invests very uniquely in outreach and education, both to reduce contamination, but also increase participation to get people more confident about understanding their access to recycling and what they can do. I won't go through these one by one, but these are the kinds of efforts that we can do in any EcoMaine community, including you folks right here in Hollis. So we can, community meetings, we do things at libraries, we do things in schools, we have grants for schools, virtual tours, games, crafts. I did paper making. I brought my boys to our hometown library the other day for some paper making with EcoMaine. All of that helps us talk to people of all ages about the waste hierarchy. We have a terrific education outreach team there. You can see we reached over 100,000 community members this year, amazingly. So please take advantage of those services. They're part of your relationship with EcoMaine. There's no cost for that programming. So please catch up with me. You can find, on the EcoMaine website, connect with Kevin, any way you want to reach us. We'd be really happy. It really is a terrific team, experts in what they do, and they'd love to work with you to get out there in the community. I think that's my last one. Good, last one. Yeah. Thank you. Turn it back to Kevin.
Thanks, Lucy. So what I did want to bring to your attention is what I mentioned earlier, and that's EPR. I'm hoping that you, another takeaway from today is to understand what EPR means and what it really, the impacts it'll have on the town, because I think they're significant. EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility, is going to give recycling the shot in the arm that it's needed in order to boost it and bring it to the next level. So next slide. It's an environmental policy that moves the responsibility, the financial burden of managing the costs associated with recycling and waste disposal it's a shared responsibility, but really transitions the cost from municipalities or taxpayers over to the generators, the producers who are putting this type of packaging into the waste stream. It'll have impacts on consumers that'll be favorable, municipalities that are favorable, and it will also incentivize producers, brands, to make sure that they're utilizing, that they're packaging their goods in packages that are environmentally friendly and recyclable, or more recyclable, and what we call readily recyclable. Because if it's not readily recyclable, it becomes very challenging to recover that item. So next slide. As I mentioned, it's going to provide financial relief to municipalities. It'll shift the responsibilities of waste management and incentivize producers to consider more readily recyclable packaging. Next slide. This actually is a really good picture of some of the new equipment that'll be installed in the new facility. The lit piece of equipment is one of those optical sorters. The conveyor belt will introduce material into the optical separator. It'll identify the different components of the recycling stream, and then it'll use air to actually jet the material to the proper location or the proper bin. These systems can sort about 1,100 pieces per minute, compared to a manual sort, which is only about 50 pieces per minute. So just has a huge opportunity to do much more sorting, much more effectively than we're doing today. Next slide. EPR, there's a trend for EPR. Maine was the first state, so woohoo for Maine. But there have now been other states that have followed suit. And now we have 5 states that have existing laws, and we have another 5 states that are either considering or have a needs assessment that's underway. So definitely a trend, and the reason is because disposal has become more and more expensive, and so has recycling as well. So just managing trash in general has become more expensive, and municipalities can't share the entire burden of that cost. Next slide. So this kind of gives an example of what types of things are covered through this program. I will note it is a packaging stewardship program, so it only includes packaging. So when you think about what you put in your recycling bin, think about the packaging piece of it that's covered. So it includes plastic, metal, and glass containers. It includes boxes. It doesn't include newspapers. those that are left, because a newspaper isn't a package. It doesn't include magazines or junk mail. So those items are not covered. It only covers the packaging piece, which we provide. We'll provide this data for you. You don't have to keep track of it. We'll provide the data as far as what's recyclable and what's not in your program. But, basically we're betting that about 70 to 80% of what people are putting into the recycling bins today, and it's growing, is packaging. So that means, as far as reimbursements go, 70 to 80% of your costs are reimbursable through this program. This is a new program, so nobody knows exactly how it's going to play out. The funding for this program actually begins. Producers start paying into this program on January 1st, 2026. So that's coming up soon, 6 months. You will be tallying all of your recycling costs for calendar year 2026, and then you will submit those costs to the stewardship organization, who will manage this program for the municipalities in the state of Maine. And then by October of 2027, that's when the reimbursements are expected to be refunded to the municipalities. So we need to start by tallying up keeping track of all our recycling costs, and it includes costs such as collection, processing, and disposal. So you collect materials in Hollis, you have curbside collection. We want to make sure that that curbside is an efficient program. Your processing costs that you pay EcoMaine are eligible for reimbursement. And then a portion of disposable costs for non-readily recyclable materials is also eligible. Next slide. I've mentioned the municipal funding. The education and outreach is going to be critical, because if people aren't participating in your recycling program, then you're not going to get the full impact of the financial rewards associated with this program. If the material is simply if recyclable materials are being thrown into the waste stream, which ends up at the waste energy plant or the landfill, that's not eligible for reimbursements. So very important that the outreach and education is done to maximize participation in these programs in order to maximize the reimbursements to municipalities. Next slide. So, the law was introduced in 2021. The last few years have been on rulemaking. The rules have been adopted, and the next piece of it is that municipalities have to choose to opt in. You already have a recycling program, so you're eligible to opt into the program. So that's simple. You've got to begin to keep track of all your costs associated with recycling. That's pretty easy. It's the bill that you get from your waste collector. But it's only the piece that's associated with recycling. Remember, solid waste collection isn't covered, but recycling collection is covered. The cost to collect that material, to haul it to EcoMaine, the processing costs that we charge you. It used to be we had recycling for free. For many, many, many years, recycling was free as a way to incentivize municipalities to begin recycling programs. The blueprint for that has totally changed, because now we have to recognize the true cost of recycling, processing, and marketing recyclable materials so that we can be eligible for the reimbursements. So we are actually we've done this over the last few years, strategically increasing the cost of recycling to our member communities to get it up to the real cost of recycling, so that we didn't leave any money on the table, because we want to maximize that reimbursement to our member communities. Next slide. Recycling markets. Recycling markets have improved over the last 20 years. And the next few slides are some examples. This first slide, this is cardboard. So these are the Amazon boxes, the cardboard boxes, cereal boxes. You can see that the market's been steady over the last year. It's been pretty steady over the last 10 years. Most of our cardboard markets are domestic markets. So that cardboard stays right here in the country, and most of that material, the biggest buyer that we have is Solvay Paperboard in Syracuse, New York. So much of our cardboard goes to Syracuse, where it's recycled, 100% recycled into new boxes. So they don't make boxes with wood chips or trees. They're making boxes from recycled cardboard boxes, 100% recycled pulp mill. Next slide. Mixed paper has had some mixed results. You can see it's had over the last year some ups and some downs, coming back a little bit now again. The reason for that is because, there's just the market for paper has really changed. We used to sell all of our newsprint to Maine mills. And then when the newspaper market plummeted, then we had to come up with new markets. But the market for mixed paper has been a little bit unsteady because the market, it's not a mature market yet. It's a new market for this type of paper because mixed paper hasn't been around that long. It used to be newspapers. Now we call it mixed paper. That said, it is improving, and we do see a future for mixed paper. Next slide. Here's metal. The top bars are aluminum cans. The green bar down below is for the bimetal cans, or your steel, more commonly known as your steel cans or your tin cans. So good, steady markets over the last year. Next slide. And then plastics. So you can see the orange bar has increased. That's for your natural milk jugs. So if you buy a gallon of milk in one of those white cloudy jugs, that's what that material is. So when somebody tells you, oh, they're just throwing away plastic recyclables, there's no way, if it's worth $2,000 a ton, there's no way, it's worth more than aluminum. There's no way that we're going to throw that material out. It's just too valuable. And if you've ever seen our bales are about 2,000 pounds, and they're about this big. We squash all those containers into a very dense bale, and so each one of those bales is being sold for about $2,000 a ton. We can put about 25 of those bales on a tractor trailer and then ship it to market. A lot of that material goes to York, Pennsylvania. Lever Brothers actually recycles that plastic into new plastic bottles. So again, 100% bottles to bottles recycling. So very important market. And then you see some of the other plastics. This is where I differentiate, and really the incentive for the EPR program for producers is to incentivize them to utilize packaging that has a good return, that has a good market, that you can actually get money for. Because when we're selling material for those kind of values, that is going to pay for the recycling program. So they're not going to have to fund the program nearly as much if they use packaging that is valuable, such as the high-density polyethylene bottles that I just mentioned, such as the PET bottles, like the water bottles, like the bottle you might have, the bottle you have right there on the table, or aluminum cans, all readily recyclable materials that pretty much pay for themselves, and try to stay away from non-readily recyclable containers or packaging. Next slide. So a little bit more on Hollis, and this is my final couple of slides here. Go ahead. So you can see your tonnage breakdown. You can see the top line is your waste, and you can see the bottom line there is your recyclable materials. And then if you go to the bottom of the chart, I know the numbers are small, but the recycling rate over the last 10 years has come down. Don't be too hard on yourself. There's a reason why it's come down, for two reasons. Number one, as I mentioned earlier, newspapers have disappeared. 15 years ago, newspapers were a huge contributor to that recycling rate. When they disappeared, so you're doing pretty good, but we need to get it back up to, at least a third of the waste stream. You want to get back up to 33% if you can, maybe even 40%. So that's something to really, I think we can push the town and provide the education and the public relations that you need to get that recycling back up. Because again, the recycling tons are reimbursable, but the solid waste tons are not reimbursable. So you want to move waste from the solid waste stream to the recycling stream in order to pay for your programs. Next slide. So this is just an example of where we think you can get. Right now you're at the 17% recycling rate. Perhaps we can shoot for the 1/3, which is the average that we utilize through our member communities. Try to get to at least that 1/3 of recycling, or 33%, in order to maximize the reimbursements. And my final slide, thank you very much, and then thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Happy to take any questions if there are any.
So I know over the last couple of years, we've had an incline on tipping fees. Are we going to start seeing those level off, or are they going to continue up?
Right. Great question. The biggest contributor, obviously, is inflation. We've had some inflationary years that we didn't experience. I mean, we went, my first 15 years with the organization, we had inflation of 2 or 3%, and we didn't increase the rate. We probably should have, but we basically kept it level. We held our tipping fee for 10 years at $70 a ton. Then when we got hit, obviously, with inflation and COVID and everything else, our industry has been hit particularly hard because of some of the materials that we use. And then a lot of our pollution control chemicals have been hit very hard with inflation. We've seen some of those inflationary rates of over 20%. So our hope we have a 5-year plan that the board reviews every single year. It's my best tool in the toolbox to manage the organization. Actually, I was having a conversation with our finance manager today. That 5-year plan is a good, sound plan, but it kind of shows you where we land over the next 5 years and what the rates are going to be. And we update that every year. So to answer your question, we are projecting that we're going to have another large increase this year in the solid waste tipping fee, and then we're going to try to get it back to an inflationary amount, and that's in the 5-year plan. On the other side of the equation is recycling. As I mentioned before, that is increasing, but that's because we want to maximize the reimbursement that you're eligible for recycling. So it kind of sounds crazy. You're charging me more. It doesn't sound like a good thing, but actually, because you're an owner community, it is a good thing because you want to get as much of that money back as you can, because the cost is the cost. And you're going to pay for it one way or the other, so you might as well maximize your reimbursement. Thank you for the question.
Could you go back to the previous slide, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
So, we're at 17%. We want to get to 33% or close to. Do you have another example of a town that was around that rate and was able to have that type of increase to that size, to a 1/3? And what did they do? If yes, who did it? Not who, but
Sure.
how did they do it?
I try not to pit one town against another. What I can say is there's tools in the toolbox to improve your rate. So first and foremost, it's public education. Most people will recycle, but they just might not know how, or they might not know, they don't have the tools to recycle. One of the things I think that has kept your rate down a little bit is, believe it or not, you got to have a container. People associate, okay, what do I put my recyclables in?
Right.
And so the container, for the last 30 years, we've been issuing out containers and blue bins, and now we have carts. The container actually is a tool to improve recycling. If you don't have a container, people are like, well, what am I supposed to use? It's easy. You can use any container you want,
Yeah.
but it's not a reminder, and it's got to be blue. And so that's a tool in the toolbox you can use. And then you got to remind people over and over again. You can't just tell them once. It's like drinking and driving. You can't just tell them once. You got to tell it over. The message has got to be there over and over again. And I think that if that messaging is there in the schools, in the classrooms, at the fairs and festivals, that's going to drive that up. The other thing that's going to drive that up is, I believe it's going to take some time to do this, but producers are going to begin to make sure that they're packaging in more readily recyclable packaging, and when that happens, that's going to drive that up.
So, and maybe the rest of the board can educate me on this. What's the barrier to the blue bins? Is it cost? Why don't our residents have a blue bin?
Well, cost is usually the biggest barrier. Yeah, every resident has to have a bin, and every bin costs money. What you're seeing now is you're seeing a trend toward automated collection. and I'm not sure where you're at with your collection contract. You might know more than I do, but bottom line is the whole industry is moving toward automated collection, and so that means the driver doesn't get out of the vehicle. This industry is the 5th most dangerous industry, actually ahead of fire and police, believe it or not. And a lot of it's on the collection side. And so people will slow down for a police car and an ambulance, but they actually speed up for a garbage truck. And they speed up and go around as fast as they possibly can. And so it is a dangerous industry. And so we're trying to keep those drivers in the truck and not on the back of the truck. They used to hang on the back of the truck. I mean, that's going away. You don't see it very often anymore. In some areas, you are still seeing it, but eventually that goes away. That is going away. So you're going to eventually go into automated, I believe, and so that means every resident is going to have 2 bins, and when you go automated, you have to have a bin. You'll have 1 cart, a rollaway cart, for recycling, and you'll have 1 for trash. And the entire country has really moved into this automated approach. And basically, the truck picks it up, 6 seconds, dumps the trash, puts the lever over, dumps the recycling, and there's 2 compartments in 1 truck. Half of it goes into the trash compartment, and half of it goes into the recycling compartment. So that's probably where you're headed. There could be some intermediate steps that you could take, but the bin the industry has found that the bin is important to get good participation in the recycling program.
Thank you.
People like their bins.
I had a question about the composting. I know how Portland and other big communities have like a separate, like a third thing that people leave out to kind of cut back on the waste. Is that anything that EcoMaine gets into? You said about this Exeter thing. How do you get your
Sure.
You guys don't pick it out of our trash, do you?
Not yet. So right now, the programs that are available are source-separated food waste collection programs. So in some of the more densely populated areas, you're seeing a hauler. There's a couple of haulers out there that'll pick up food waste, keep it in a separate bin, and then they can bring it to us, or they can bring it to another composter. We're not the only composter, but we do take food waste, and we do take food waste in a plastic bag, believe it or not. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. But the food waste comes into us in street trucks, smaller volume trucks, and then we ship it to Exeter from our place once we have enough. And they have about 2,000 cows in Exeter. And that's where they mix the manure in with the food waste. So that program is available, but it's harder in more rural areas because the driveways are further apart, and so the pickup is less efficient. So it's 12 seconds per household for the pickup of the 2-stream for automated collection. The drive time between each house is the variable that makes rural areas more expensive to collect in, believe it or not, because if the houses are stacked up one another, it's more efficient. So that's probably why you don't have that kind of availability out here. But what you do have is residents that have larger yards that might be able to do backyard composting. Because they just have a lot. If you're in an apartment in Portland, you might not have any space to do any composting. But in a rural community, you have more space to do that. So we always want to encourage leaving lawn clippings on the lawn to rejuvenate the lawns. Backyard composting. If residents can manage the waste stream on their own, that's a best practice. That's reducing and reusing first and foremost. If that's not available, then we look at other alternatives. Those programs are coming, but that's probably why you don't have that opportunity in a more rural community. I'm not sure if Garbage to Garden would come out this way or not. That said, we're looking at the future of programs, and we do think that there will be a program someday that will co-collect material together, and then we'll do the separation at our place. And we've actually have a blueprint to do it. We just can't afford it right now, and that is where residents would put their food waste in a green bag. So all their food waste would go in a green bag, and they'd put it in their garbage cart, the rollaway cart that I mentioned. And then it would come to us, and we would use optical sortation to identify the green bags and then remove them robotically because nobody wants to sort waste by hand anymore. Remove that food waste by hand and send that to the digester because we have a hard time burning tomatoes and lettuce and cucumbers and food waste. It doesn't make sense to burn that or combust that material. And so there's a better way to recover that energy, and that's through digestion or composting. And we support both. There's pros and cons to composting and digestion, but we believe there's a place for both. Thank you for the question.
So basically, in our situation, the best thing to do would be to come up with some town program to give out composters to people. Is that?
Yeah, I think in rural communities, that is a tool that certainly you can use. Not everybody's going to do it. We recognize that, but more people may do it. And food waste is heavy, so it really adds to your solid waste tonnage. So I think as part of the education program, getting the word out to backyard composting or composters, and I think that would certainly help. Because even if we ever do have a food waste collection program in the town of Hollis, and we are able to offer that, we still want people to manage their own waste if they have the ability to do that and the willingness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody? Here we come. The Becky Bali question.
I have a few. Becky Bowley, Timber Lane, Hollis. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What benefit do the original 27 owners of Echo Maine have with allowing new owners?
Great question, and a question that comes up a lot. What it is economy of scale. So when we make investments, making those investments over more communities means making those investments over more tons. If we invest in this new recycling facility and we have, let's say, 20,000 tons of material that we have to manage, managing 20,000 tons of material, while easier to do, is much more expensive than managing 40,000 tons of material. So the economy of scale is huge in this business. We can, and we had this discussion, and the board had deliberated on this for a lot of meetings. We can stay small. If you want to stay small, certainly will make my job easier. We can stay small, but your costs are going to go up much more quickly than they would in comparison to having this economy of scale, which we're trying to build.
Can I just add?
Sure,
That's good.
certainly.
So why would we allow them to become owners and just not have them as a member?
Well, the owners take on the debt. So the contract members don't take on the debt. So we're trying to spread out the debt over more owner communities.
Okay. All right. So I still have some more.
Sure.
I didn't bring a pen, so I had to put it on my phone. Mike already came into this, what would be the benefit of Hollis investing in blue bins, but you've already answered that. Paper bag. What would Hollis save in trash if we went paper bag? Like when I go to the grocery store, I see a rack that has all these communities that have paper bag. Because I believe that the trash that I generate, I should pay for, and the trash that you generate, you should pay for. So what would be the benefit of Hollis going to paper bag?
So that we try not to take a position on paper bags because we have about half of our communities use paper bag and half of them don't. And there's pros and cons to both, and we recognize that there's pros and cons to both. And it really becomes a funding question on how you want to fund your solid waste programs, and do you want to do it through a user fee or not. It's been successful in some communities. It's been less successful in other communities. It really depends on compliance. If people are following the rules when it comes to paper bag. So there's a whole lot of variables that come to paper bag. We take the position that it's something that the towns have to kind of decide on their own whether or not they're going to utilize the paper bag programs or not. One thing of note is that if you look at our statistics, you will see that the data shows that the paper bag communities have better recycling rates and less trash on a per capita basis than the non-paper bag communities. But you need to take that data with a grain of salt, because what happens is when you charge somebody, let's say, $3 a bag, some people might be able to say that's reasonable and I'll participate, but other people may say, no, I'm not paying $3. But if you charge somebody $10 a bag, there's a point where somebody says, I'm not going to participate in the paper bag program, and they take their waste someplace else. We're not worried as much about litter or roadside dumping or anything like that. That can happen. That's something that's a variable that can happen, but it's not a big of an issue as the reality that people eventually, when you raise the cost of the bag to whatever their threshold is, they will find a different system to manage their trash. Maybe they'll hire their own hauler. And we see that in a lot in paper bag communities, is those people who aren't willing to buy the bags hire their own hauler. The hauler then picks up, it's private subscription, the hauler picks up their waste, and it doesn't get counted in the tons that the town is responsible for. But the reality of it is the waste is still there. It's just going in this way with somebody else paying for it rather than this way with the municipality paying for it.
Ready?
Yep.
Is there funding available through any of these programs to do a direct mailer to our residents, or some kind of a information piece that they could hang on the inside of their cupboard door that says, oh, this is what I have to do? And then, you have a prime example to sell your program next Tuesday from 4 to 6 when we're having our welcome meeting. You could set up a table and maybe residents would take
Maybe if we
flyers
give
and
them
stuff.
enough donuts,
Huh? Yeah. Or maybe residents
they'll
would
want to
take-
recycle.
Well, that's a good point, Becky. We have Community Day coming up also,
yeah.
and if they set up
Which
a
they-
booth at
yeah.
Yep.
Community Day, that's going to hit a lot more of our residents.
Right. So I've always been a proponent for years of paper bag. If I generate 7 bags of trash a week and Roger generates 1, Roger should only be paying for 1. But that's
As
my
long
opinion.
as the paper bag doesn't break on
Right,
my
as
way
long
to
as
put it
it's affordable
wherever.
for everybody. So, but thank you for coming.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Sorry to do this. Just one more thing on this graph up here. The original question I asked: have you ever seen a community around our size or around our number here increase up to what you're seeing with the 1/3?
We've seen as much. We've had communities get close to 50%. So 50% is not impossible. It's aggressive, but we do have data that shows that some communities have gone as far as 40 to 45%.
You're talking about a 45% increase over what they're at?
No, 45% recycling.
Okay, well yeah. So how about just get into 33, going from what we are at 17 to that small increase?
Yes.
Have you seen communities do that?
Yes.
Okay. And how did they do that?
Through some of the tools, such as the bin, and I don't
bin.
want to overemphasize, but that's a tool.
Is there any incentive that your company does for the bins or anything? Is there some
Well,
discounted?
recycling investments. So the recycling bin is something that you can that is eligible for reimbursement. And I say eligible because I didn't make the state rules, and so you're eligible for it. Doesn't mean you're going to get it. You have to apply for it in order to get the funding for it. So with any new program, there's going to be a lot of growing pains in the program, but once it gets started, I think we'll all fully understand on how the program works. My point is, yes, recycling investments are eligible for reimbursement. So yes, your bins, your recycling bins, not your solid waste bins, but your recycling bins are eligible for reimbursement. As is the public education. You mentioned the direct mailings. Those are all eligible things. Again, that's something that you will have to work out with the stewardship organization, but there is funding available for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us
Thank you
back.
so much. We really
Appreciate it.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave, Lucy, and Kevin. Appreciate it.
And you don't have to stay for our whole meeting. We really appreciate you coming. You can stay if you like, but
I'm impressed with your new building. I want a tour.
we'll come back during the day sometime and we'll give you one.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, under old business, we have some meeting minutes to approve. On May 21st, I think all three of us were here, myself, John, and Roger, John Jack. So if I can have a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the meeting of May 21, 2025.
Second that.
All those that were there in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then on June 4th, I think it was just Roger and myself. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from June 4th.
I'll second.
And I think Roger and I will approve them.
Yep.
Cool.
Jeff can abstain.
And Jack can abstain, right?
Yes.
Thanks. So now Jack's going to present the new municipal town office update.
Well, we're moving right along. A lot of progress. It's been a long road, and we're in home stretch. Figure maybe another couple months, hopefully, be all said and done. A lot of work is being done inside, that folks can't see, you know, tiling, et cetera, painting, and those type of things, ceilings, and you name it. So, they filled the tanks, right?
Not yet.
Not yet. The tanks
No.
get filled. They just set them up, and they got to plumb
They've
'em.
got the tanks and they're
Right,
plumbing
they
them
have
now.
to plumb them in, but they tested the sprinkler system, right?
Right.
So
I
that
think
was
they
taken
did a
care of.
pressure test.
Yep.
Yep. And we tied into the new tanks, so, hopefully, they're on target, and if it keeps going that way, it's been a new facility.
Yep. And I'd like to thank our town employees for being such great interior designers. The paints
were
and
fabulous.
selections that they've made are
Yep.
fabulous. I got a tour this morning of the paint colors, and I'm really excited to move into my office with the nice color. So thank you to everybody
They
in the
did
town.
They did one heck of a job.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
They picked all the tiles and the
Yep.
paints and what it's going to look like. So we appreciate their input.
Yeah.
The comprehensive plan is
Oh,
going to be.
wait, got one more thing.
One more thing?
Yeah,
Oh,
one more thing.
sorry.
The municipal town complex will be closed to public on Monday, July 28th. They'll be paving, and nobody will be getting into the area because they're going to block it all off, and they're going to do quite a bit of the paving. They're going to put the base coat down.
So we just wanted to announce that so everybody knew that. Comprehensive plan is going to start having public hearings in August, so we can hopefully get it on the November warrant. Basically, the chapters are laid out to be very informational, very data-driven, and then we're going to be looking at what standards and what policies we want to work on during the next year, and hopefully be reviewing it every year so it doesn't get sort of lost in translation for years. So we'll be working on that starting in August with public hearings. Roads update?
Roger.
Me?
Yep.
Well, I believe
Yeah, we
Allstate has the paving for Haley Road, Mansion Road, and White House Road. I know Robbie, the road commissioner, was talking with Waterboro about that small section, whether or not they were going to go in with us on that. I can't remember. He told me a date. Do you know off the top of your head, Becky? But I believe the paving should start pretty soon, within the month here. So those roads are on the schedule right now to be paved.
So another thing that we're going to talk about a little bit in a minute is the bar mills decommissioning. We're going to appoint a committee because they're supposed to be coming out with their study results. They were supposed to be available in June. Hopefully they'll be available in July. And Brookfield has appointed a consultant to work with both towns, and they want 5-member committee from both towns, so a total of 10 individuals. We've had some volunteers. So I'd like to recommend that we create a committee for the bar mills decommissioning. So I need a motion.
Well, if you want to make the motion and name off the committee,
Okay.
then we can go from there.
Alrighty, so make a motion that we appoint a Bar Mills Decommissioning Committee. So far for our members, the people that have applied are Paul Mator, Terry Walters, Jim Booton, and Renee Lewis. So I'd like to make a motion that we appoint those people to the committee.
Second your motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Or any discussion?
Should we do all 5?
Well, we want to do a 5th person, and there was some discussion about whether, well, Dan wants to volunteer, and I don't know if the town manager wanted to be part of that committee, or if Dan can represent the town on the decommissioning for the Bar Mills Dam.
Aiming at me? I'm sorry, I can't
Yeah.
hear you.
So what we're trying to decide is we have 4 members appointed to the committee, and we wanted to decide who was going to be the town representative. Dan Urumian would like to be on the committee unless you would like to be on it.
I have no issues at all with that.
Okay, so we'll also include Dan Urumian as our 5th member, if Dan wants to say okay to it.
I accept.
So, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It was unanimous, so we'll get that. And we have, I think, appointment papers for all those members except for Dan, so we'll get Dan's done tomorrow. But it just basically says that we're going to appoint those individuals in accordance with the provisions of the laws of the state of Maine to the Bar Mills Decommissioning Committee within and for the municipality of Hollis, with a term expiring June 30th, 2026. So it'd be those 5 individuals.
Perfect.
Strong group.
Stronger what?
Strong group. It's a,
Yep,
it's
yep.
a mighty committee.
We still have some vacancies on the planning board. We're looking for 1 full-time member and 2 alternates. We do have one application so far, so we're still looking for applications for the planning board. And we're looking for applications for the finance committee. We have 1 vacancy on the finance committee because Dan Urumian needed to step down when he became a select board member. We, policy number 10, the schedule of fees, which we approved last time, we just had to make a correction to the code officer fence fees. So we did that correction, and that's been re-signed.
Do we need a motion on that?
So we need a motion to make that correction to the code enforcement officer fence fee.
Make a motion, we amend policy number 10 to the schedule of fees.
Second.
All those in, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Now we're up to our favorite portion, the payroll and warrant totals and purchase orders.
Warrants last week was $49,188. Warrant this week is $66,400. Payroll last week, $41,793. Payroll this week is $43,275. We have purchase order 4551 for Happy Wheels. That's the Summer Rec field trip, $1,150, and 4550 is for the fire department, and that's for the annual testing of pumps, hoses, ladders, and suction. It's $6,927.75, and that's what we have.
Who would like to do correspondence and announcements?
A reminder that all town offices are closed on Friday, July 4th in observance of the Independence Day holiday.
Can everybody hear Jack?
No.
No?
Pull the mic in.
There you go.
Thank you. We keep forgetting that part.
I know. You want me to say that one over again?
Sure.
Yes.
I knew you'd say that. A reminder that all town offices are closed on Friday, July 4th, in observance of the Independence Day holiday. No fireworks. Our new curbside trash and recycling pickup vendor, Mellon and Son Disposal, began July 1st. Please note that they start picking up trash at 6 a.m. and will be using 2 trucks, one trash, one for recycling. Please place all trash bags in bins or containers. Holiday schedule is the same, with the exception of the 4th of July. They will be picking up that day. There was some calls. Some folks didn't get it out on time. They went around, and after they went around the first run, then they brought trash out, and then it was too late. So, but it's a learning curve. I'm sure everybody's going to adjust to it.
And there also were some calls that they started earlier
Yep.
than 6 a.m., so we're addressing that also.
Yep.
So there was a posting on Facebook today that said that you didn't have to put your trash in bins, and that you have to put your trash in bins or
Yep.
containers. We don't want loose trash, even if it's bagged, loose, because the birds and varmints get into it and spread it all over the road. And then usually the neighbors and not the person that left the trash out gets to clean it
Oh, yeah.
up. So we've changed our policy to request that you put it in containers or bins.
Ready?
I'm ready.
We hope you can join us to meet our new town manager, Richard, a.k.a. Dick Moran, on Tuesday, July 8th, from 4 to 6 p.m. at the community building. Coffee and huge jelly donuts will be, and snacks will be served. The public is encouraged to attend.
The only reason he says huge jelly donuts is because we had a training on Friday and we had donuts, and they were huge.
Yeah.
So please come and eat some of the huge donuts.
Point of order, Ms. Chairwoman. Just so you know, in the beginning of the meeting, you attributed the donut idea to someone in the community. That was my idea. I just want to make sure
Okay,
everyone
Mike.
understands that Tony's Donuts.
Understand that Mike
Look at that.
Hanwha
Let it be known.
made the recommendation,
Really?
and then it was
Through a misunderstanding, but at the same time,
Okay.
I was the donut.
alrighty
Idea.
then.
So that means you could eat 3
I'm
donuts?
fine with that. I will do it. I'll stay hungry all day.
Okay,
wanna take
we will give the credit
sure.
to Mike
Thank you, ma'am.
Hanwha.
All right, due to the influx of customers getting new license plates, we highly encourage residents who need to re-register their vehicles, trailers, and boats to do so online through Rapid Renewal. The links to re-register are on our website, or go to maine.gov and search Renew My Registration. Registering new vehicles, trailers, and boats must be done in person at the town hall still.
We really want people to take notice to that, because there is really a heavy influx on that. So if you can do it online, the re-registering, please do so.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Other business, Mike Hanwha has something to say.
This is a statement really from the whole board. It's been a couple days since all this transpired, but as a board, we just wanted to say that it brings a really deep sense of relief and gratitude for the entire community. As many of you know, a resident was reported missing from his home off of 117 over the weekend. And thanks to tireless efforts from our first responders and search teams, the resident was found alive late Monday morning, conscious and alert in a wooded area not far from his home. The outcome is quite remarkable. I'm not sure how you felt, but I was kind of fearing the worst, so it's really great to hear that he was alive and generally okay. This gentleman, who suffers from cognitive challenges, had been missing for over 24 hours. Thank God it was summer. The search area was dense with tall grass and thick underbrush, making the task incredibly difficult. Yet the dedicated teams, they did not give up. So we wanted to take a moment to extend our heartfelt thanks to the Maine Warden Service, especially Game Warden Dory Kulis, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, and her grid search team, who ultimately located the resident, I should say. We also want to thank the Maine State Police, Chief Young in the Hollis Fire Department, the Westbrook Police Department, and specifically their helicopter, who, Becky, we had a fun time on Sunday night. Quite the spectacle on Pleasant Hill Road, with it coming very short over our road. It's pretty cool to see. The Cumberland County Sheriff's Department, Maine Forest Rangers, Waterboro Fire Department, York County Emergency Management Agency, and the Maine Search and Rescue Dogs. Their coordination, the professionalism, and unwavering commitment brought a Hollis resident home safely, or at least to the hospital, and now he's probably home. This is a powerful reminder of the strength of our community and the incredible people who serve it every day. Let's continue to support one another and explore ways to protect our most vulnerable residents, including tools like Project Lifesaver. Does anyone know what Project Lifesaver is? It's a GPS bracelet. It's pretty cool technology, which can help prevent future incidents like this. Thanks.
And then I also wanted to thank the members of the community, because I know that when people read it on Facebook or heard it from their friends, that everybody searched their yards and if you walked your dog down the road, you were constantly looking ditches and into the woods to see if you could find them. So thank you to the community, and I know there were also community members that took water over for their dogs and and helped people find where they needed to be in Hollis. So thank you to the community also.
Martha, did you want that?
I have it.
You got it? Okay.
So,
Martha's got some other business.
other business, Miss Martha.
Okay. Well, and I'll thank the community as well on that. I think many people outreached for that, and when they said don't come,
They didn't.
I appreciated the community's response that they didn't come and get in the way, because that's always your first thought is, oh, I'm going to go help search, and that's not what they wanted. And I think from what I've heard, the community was respectful of that, and that certainly probably saved his life in the end, because there wasn't all kinds of scents out through the woods and all that. And I spoke to a neighbor today, and of course they searched their own property, when they saw it, and he wasn't far from it. But they did as they were told. I thought that was nice. It was nice to see positive posts on the community page. That was really nice, instead of complaints. A couple of things I want to bring up. I am the Freedom of Access Information Officer, and I want to thank Chris Young. We've been getting a lot of them, and kind of more from businesses that are looking to do business with us. I know Bennett's been inundated with requests for the new town hall, and those bids and things have been pretty much fulfilled. But we got a couple this week that are like, we'd like every purchase order that you've had since 2000. Well, we don't have any way to document that or get it, so that's good. And typically what I do is send a response acknowledging it, and that I will get back to them with a cost and if we even have those documents. So that kind of covers us with a 5-day, if you're going to deny it in 5 days. The one that came up this week, fortunately, I sent it along to the fire chief because he was mentioning it. And he came back to me and said, Martha, I think that's truly spam. And of course, I had responded, but I hadn't clicked on any of the links, thankfully. So I'm waiting to hear back from Chris Young, but I applaud him for being on top of it, reading the email and saying, whoa, take your time on this one. I wouldn't normally click on it anyway. I mean, I would respond, and hopefully that didn't expose us to anything dangerous, but they're out there, and it's very innocently. I know one time I got one, I don't think he'll mind if I use his name, Dave McCoubry, and it said, Martha, I need your help. And of course I immediately opened it up. Well, he wanted me to go and get some gift cards for him because they needed to do gifts for the town employees. Well, I knew that the town of Hollis wasn't doing gifts for the town employees, so I knew right then.
Occasionally we do buy pizza or something.
Yeah, but they wouldn't do it through me, so I kind of knew. So we all had a good chuckle of that. But it's just kind of an awareness thing, and even for people at home, that you get these innocent things, and our first thing is, oh, of course I want to help. Well, maybe you don't want to help. And I've said to my deputy a couple times is, I'm not the best at anything I said, but I am a good person to do the freedom of access because I don't act very quickly on anything. And sometimes it helps to think about it overnight, and I'm not running around with my head cut off, oh, I got to get this information, because I don't have to get that information, especially if we don't have it. We don't have to create it, you know. I just want to say to all of you, we need to be conscious of that and aware of it. So that's my one lecture for tonight. And then I want to say, I know you mentioned the trash calls. We had about 15 of them in the town clerk's office. And if it had been me, they'd have got forwarded up to the select board. But my new deputy has a little more patience than I do, so she answered them. What is the correct thing to do? Should we be giving them Mellon trucking number, or should we be forwarding to the select board, or how would you like us to handle those calls?
I'd probably say it depends on what the complaint is.
Well, most of them some of them were just general information. We could answer them. And I also want to say I appreciate the people that were kind and considerate and asked good questions. Like, one, they didn't take all my stuff. So that was easy to answer, that there'd be another truck coming. But, for the people that didn't get it out at 6, well, they never used to come at 6. Well, it's a learning curve. And I will say, just so you don't think I'm not all sweetness, I had a woman come in, and I know her very well, and she came in and she said, I'm not happy. And I said, when are you ever? And because she just wanted to about it, and there wasn't anything we were going to say to make her happy. And I said, you can go up to the select board, and fortunately I don't think she did, but she tends to be one of those that if any little thing she can stir, she'll stir. So I do try to be more professional with that, but I wasn't with her today, so I will admit that. Anyways, just want to make you aware, so, and because you mentioned it tonight, I'm sure that you know that when there's a town meeting, that the clerk is pretty much an integral part of that. So today, I had 2 people approach me about dates for a town meeting, and I said, what town meeting, next June? And they said no, in November. So this is what I'd like to say, that special town meetings, and I always say this, are the exception, not the rule. The town's business should be conducted at the annual town meeting in June each year. This is totally a select board decision when a special town meeting is called. If Roger had been here, I'm sure he would have been down the stairs to tell me about it. If my deputy had been there, she's new. She said I wouldn't have been able to answer those questions. So in fairness, we need to have some communication. One of my questions for Roger tonight was, and I'm thankful to Roger, he did the election budget for me because I wasn't able to do it. But do we have money budgeted for special town meetings in the election budget? For special town meetings. I mean, there are costs to that. We have advertising, additional ballot machines, rental of thumb drives, cost of the ballots, and election staff. So it's not like just because it's convenient for you, it may not be effective or cost effective for the taxpayer. Not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying, is it budgeted for? I generally do look ahead at what the major elections are. This November one, I believe, is a special referendum because it's for citizens petition initiatives. So it's not something that was regularly scheduled. I don't think they have candidates on this one for this November. The candidates will be on in June next year. And sometimes, recently they've pulled out March primaries and I don't know that they will this time, but that's up to the parties to determine that. So you can see how your budget can grow and grow and grow. The other thing I was hoping the selectmen would take into consideration is that once again we'll be changing our voting place with the state of Maine, and hopefully this will be the last time. That paperwork, as Roger knows, is about over 20 pages long.
Yep.
You have to certify that your doors are the right size, that your thresholds are the right size, that your ballot box can be 6 feet away from the people that are voting. So we have to design a whole new plan for the building over there. And it needs to be submitted 90 days before the election, which roughly brings us to August 1st. So I'm going to ask the select board to put something in writing for me that the new town hall election area and the driveway will be completed with ADA compliance so that I can submit that request to the state. Generally, they come out and look at it and certify it, which they won't be able to do for a little bit, I would think, till we get moved in, and I imagine there'll be things that need to be finalized. But our other option, if we don't do that, is to go back to the church to vote, because we've got to have a level parking lot. That's a big part of it. So if those things are done, yay, we'll only have to do that form this one time, and hopefully our elections will be there again and again and again for many years to come. But that's just another piece of the clerk's work in elections. So just so you know, the timeline for this November 4th state referendum election, because absentee ballots have to be available 30 days before the date of November 4th, the select board would need to call the special meeting and sign it at a public meeting September 3rd. And that's the deadline, folks. No extras. That's it. We're done. We're not playing the game of 2 weeks later, I'm scrambling to get stuff on the ballot. We're done with that. And if I have a right to say that. And the new town manager said when he was here that wouldn't be happening, and I was like, yes, yes, yes. So it's good. You don't realize, because you have to order ballots, has to be done through a portal. It's not an easy portal to manipulate. I'm not a great computer expert. Our new deputy took it on with gusto and did it, but it becomes frustrating because you have to wait. You submit, wait, submit, wait. But she did a great job at it, so very appreciative of that. And this will give her another time to work on it. And planning board, or I understand tonight, comprehensive plan may have something. They'll need to hold their public hearings, depending on what their ordinances say, before the select board sign the warrant. They've got to have their meetings advertised and held. And then the select board would need to do, because we do secret ballot voting, they also would need to do a public hearing at least 10 days before we do the secret ballot voting. So it's not like, oh, we're having a meeting and it's all done, okay? There's a lot of work to it. I'm not saying I'm not up to it. I'm just saying communication would be nice. I'm not faulting you new members. You're probably all going, well, I didn't know all that. So, but that's it. And then it is important that we get the language right in our ordinances. So in reviewing, MMA has a wonderful packet that they've put out on, and MMA is a legal advocate, and we use it as a resource. They have a wonderful packet out for ordinance enactment, and I think I forward it to somebody, probably the select board, every year. And the proper language for ordinances is adopted, amended, and repealed. And I think any other language is not, I couldn't find it in any of their documents. So you're adopting it if it's the first one, you're amending it if it's a change, and you're repealing it if you're ending it, done with it. So that's just my advice. And then I do want to make you aware, we will have, under election law, the town clerk and the registrar of voters is required to take training every 2 years. And I will say, because of COVID, I have not done that. And because of my pending retirement, I don't know that I plan to, but I have encouraged the deputy to take as many classes while I'm here. So we will do that. If we both attend, the office will obviously be closed those 2 days. And I believe the deputy has signed up for a law class as well, and that's excellent as well. And those are all things she needs to know. And I tell this to all new people, take it when you're here, and then wait a little bit and take it again, because then you'll understand it more, because they're going to use terms and knowledge that you don't have a clue what they're talking about, really, you know. So I'm pleased that she's willing to do that and do that. And I should clear up about the retirement thing. My term is up in June of 2026. My plan is I do not plan to run again. So I introduce her as the new town clerk. And if I have my way, I'll be done before that. So that's just pending, but I want to help with the transition and just help with the next election, because state elections are big. Town elections, you have certification, but state elections, you have this much certification to do. So, and we're trying to get ready for the move and get the records in order like that. And I appreciate what you said about the motor vehicle registration. I think the biggest thing I see out in that office, and it's not my office, it's the tax collector's office, is people that come and aren't prepared. You know, if you come at 3 minutes of 4 and you don't have your insurance, please don't expect those women to stay and do it for you. They have not had a chance to go to the bathroom since before 9 o'clock. And it's just really, we're getting good at locking the door real quick. And if they have to go out to get their insurance card, guess what? You should have been here before 4. And we're not trying to be mean, but our people are not getting breaks. They're not getting lunches. Mentally and physically, I don't know how long they can stand up for the stamina of that. And hopefully the new board and town manager will take that into consideration, that maybe it's time we close for lunch and take a break so we get a break, you know, whatever. I'm just suggesting that. It hasn't been discussed with anybody else at the office. It's just from what I see. And you get people trained. As my deputy's been there a year now, a year in May, and it's so nice to be able to be out of the office for a few minutes and come in and it's done. The end of the month, the year ends. And when you take a job like that, it takes you a good year to learn it. So it's not like a cashier that you go in, you learn to do the register, and you're all done. It's an ongoing, year-round process for clerks, tax collectors, treasurers, and all their offices. So, just food for thought for you guys. I'm hoping that we'll have. I know you've got a lot on your plate right now. Hopefully, we'll have some employee meetings going forward so we can get some of this discussion going. But I don't want to see the people that have been here a long time and have been trained walk out the door, because they just, you know, it's a lot of stress. So take that in. Thank you to the residents that take that in mind. Like I say, the people that called today that were very pleasant, asked their questions nicely. Really, really appreciate that. We don't mind answering any questions, but, you know, when you're not nice, it's not so nice. And I'm sure we all experience that. So thank you very much. And any questions for me while I'm still here?
No, the only thing I wanted to mention is just a reminder that we are in a transition period, so the select board is not in the office every day, all day long. So that if you have questions that come in, they probably need to be referred up to the town manager.
Oh, okay.
You know, rather than the
You up
select
for that?
board, because you
Does
can.
he have an extension?
Yes, he does.
Oh, 13. All right.
Yeah.
We didn't know that today, so. But that, I mean, if it's simple trash questions like how come they only took part, we can answer that,
Right.
obviously.
But I don't want somebody to be transferred up to my phone and have me not answer for a day
Right.
because I'm not in the office, or I've already been in and answered my messages. So,
Yeah.
just a reminder, because it is a transition period, it's a period of learning for all of us as we transition to having a town manager and a select board that isn't there as often as we have been.
Right, right. And I don't want them to go to Bennett. That's not fair to her either. I mean, how many phone calls can you take in a day? Yeah, I know. If we know if it's beyond our scope, that's what I'm trying to tell. Because she's very willing to make people happy and answer their questions. But I've said to her, number one, you can be too helpful, and number two, you can't be answering questions for another department, because that's where we get into legal issues sometimes. Even if it's a code question and I might know the answer, it goes up to code. If it's a GA question and I might know the answer, it's going to go to GA. I'm not going to take it because it's not within my purview. And I get it, we want to be helpful and courteous to our residents, but we also need to look out for the legalities of the municipality, because you can't answer something wrong and have it out there.
Right.
So I
Well, thank
guess
you.
my question is do we really have anything pressing that we need November 4th as an election?
I think that's a discussion we can have on Thursday when we meet as a group. Or Wednesday when we meet with the lawyer, we can also include that in our discussion.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't have anything that's been presented to the clerk.
No?
Okay.
And then can I just add one other thing, my
Sure.
other 2 cents worth in here?
Sure.
Because I never shut up. I understand there's some questions about whether public hearings were held on certain things. If that were the case, I'd say hold a public hearing again, because when all is said and done, the public hearing's gonna cost you an advertisement. And it's like, do it, if there's any question whether something was done right, do it again if you have time. And
Okay.
do it, and get the word out. And, when the clerk doesn't even get notices of the public hearings, I don't know how the public's getting notices of them. So,
Yep.
just food for thought there. So,
Mhm.
thank you so much for
You're
letting
welcome.
me yak away.
Thank you, Martha.
You're welcome. Any other business before we move on to upcoming town committee and board meetings? So the select board meeting and executive session in consultation for legal counsel on Wednesday, July 9th at 4 p.m. in the select board office. Planning board meeting on Wednesday, July 9th at 7 p.m. Sports complex committee meeting on Thursday, July 10th at 7 p.m. Select board meeting on Wednesday, July 16th at 7 p.m. Conservation Commission meeting on Thursday, July 17th at 5:30 p.m. We also have a community resiliency meeting on July 23rd at 3 p.m. with our consultants from Southern Maine Planning and Development to go over our resiliency grant that the Hollis Conservation Commission got awarded a grant to develop an open space plan. So that's the kickoff meeting with Southern Maine and the Hollis Conservation Commission. Everybody's invited if you'd like to come and find out what it's about. It's going to be 3 to 4 p.m. on the 23rd of July. And finally, we have a planning board meeting on Wednesday, July 23rd at 7 p.m. And our next comprehensive planning meeting is July 30th, because people are going on vacation, at 9 a.m. in the community building. Thank you. Any other public comment? Do we have anybody on Zoom? Nobody on Zoom. Miss Martha?
This is just for you. One more thing. I do want to recognize Hollis Rec and their summer rec program. They are doing an awesome job with the children. I don't even know how many children they have enrolled, but it's phenomenal. And if you think I'm bad, they have 5 of mine grandberries in their program, so they're getting a workout. But from what I see, I mean, they've always done a good job, but this year the program is just above and beyond. It's just spectacular. I think paying people and having more adults work in the program, Chip and Deb and Megan, they're all phenomenal. And I, as a parent, grandparent, I certainly appreciate that, and I know the other taxpayers do, and it's nice that we have that to offer to our kids. So I can't thank them enough, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any comments from the board members? What about Mike?
No comment.
Oh, I'm on Facebook.
Roger?
I'm good. Thank you.
Jack? Jack John? Dan? What about our esteemed town manager? Dick?
I'm overwhelmed, thank you.
I
All
can
done?
hear you all, but on my computer over there, whatever you've done to the mic's awesome, because I could hear every single one of you speak. That was great.
Good deal.
Great.
Or
That's-
actually talking into them.
Yeah, just actually talking into it is the key. Yeah.
Okay,
As opposed to this.
anybody else commenting? So, Mr. Jack,
I'll make a motion at this time that we adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good
Thank
night,
you,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Have a safe 4th of July.
Yeah.